diapers?
Do astronauts wear diapers? Yes is the answer to that question. When we launch in the Soyuz, we have at least a couple of hours before launch sitting in that spacecraft, and then we have to go through a 6-hour rendezvous, and then we have to spend a couple of hours from docking until actually getting on board the space station. So we wear diapers for that. We also wear diapers when we go outside the space station to do a spacewalk. We could spend anything from 8 to 10 hours inside that spacesuit, sometimes longer. So we're beholden to take precautions and wear diapers just in case you need to use it.
Can humans colonize Mars?
Can humans colonize Mars? I think, of course, we can colonize Mars. It's both a technical and a political question, because it would take a tremendous amount of resources, and that has to have the political will and the funding to do that. And then obviously we need to develop the technology both to get there quickly, land on the planet, and then be able to live there. But I'm certain that someday we'll be able to see that, hopefully in our lifetime.
Okay, thank you guys so much. This was awesome. That was what the crowd out there would like to know. One last question is just, I have two little boys who are 4 and 6 years old, and they would love to be astronauts. Do you have any last words of advice that you'd give to kids?
You know, every young person who has the aspiration to be an astronaut should study hard in math and science, follow their passion educationally, and be able to get along well with people. And if you can do those things, you'll be so competitive to become an astronaut, you'll be able to reach your goal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes the event.
There's our first view of the orbital ATK Cygnus craft as it moves ever so slowly up what is called the radial vector, or the R-bar, the imaginary line drawn between the International Space Station and the Earth. Cygnus approaching the 30-meter hold point, a great view from the International Space Station as the two craft are about to enter an orbital sunrise, currently flying just to the north of the Dominican Republic. And an excellent high-definition view of the Cygnus cargo craft with its Ultraflex solar arrays deployed as they were just over 2 hours after its launch on Tuesday night from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station.
Station, Cygnus is ready to proceed to the capture point. Expect approach to resume shortly.
Station copies.
And Mission Director Ken Peake at the Orbital ATK Flight Control Room in Dulles, Virginia, has reported to Flight Director Gary Horlacher that Cygnus has now resumed its final approach to capture point.
Station on Space-to-Ground 2 for Cygnus, we see a primary range of 25 meters. For Block Bravo, the Port 1 lower outboard camera, the lights within the corridor, the vehicle size matches the outline. The light is in the center of the circle, and the circle is in the center of the corridor.
A good view of the Cygnus resupply ship loaded with some 7,700 pounds of supplies and experiments for the Expedition 47 crew on board the International Space Station, closing now to within about 14 meters. Cygnus steady as a rock at its capture point. The station will go into free drift a short time from now, basically disabling any thruster firings for the duration of the time of the robotic operations to avoid any perturbations as Tim Kopra extends the robot arm in for its grapple. We expect robotic arm motion in about 30 seconds with all of the flight control positions both here and at Dulles, Virginia, having expressed approval to proceed on. Cygnus now in free drift. Its thrusters disabled to prevent any perturbations at the final instant before capture. Capture confirmed. Just as we lost our downlink television signal, capture confirmed at 5:51 a.m. Central Time. Once Cygnus was grappled and a hard handshake was made between the station's robotic arm and the cargo craft itself, the robotics officer here in Mission Control took over and began to maneuver Cygnus into what is called the pre-install position. Again, this video captured a short time ago shows the Cygnus with its signature Ultraflex solar arrays being placed into the correct orientation toward the Earth-facing side of Unity and the common berthing mechanism to which the Cygnus spacecraft will be latched up to a short time from now. Everything has proceeded on track for the pre-install activities. Again, at the current time, the robotics officer is carefully monitoring the orientation and the alignment of the common berthing mechanism, the passive common berthing mechanism on the forward side of Cygnus with the active common berthing mechanism on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module to make sure we have a precise alignment before he guides it in for the so-called pre-install and ready-to-latch position that will mark the precursor to the actual bolting of Cygnus to the Earth-facing port of Unity. Station now beginning to move into an orbital sunrise, and once we lock up voice communication with the crew, which should be momentarily, we should be seeing activity resume with the robotics officer nudging the Cygnus cargo craft ever so close to its ready-to-latch position on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module of the International Space Station. There's a good close-up view of the Cygnus ever so slowly being aligned and moved towards that open hatch, which is actually the common berthing mechanism. The common berthing mechanism will receive the passive side of the Cygnus cargo craft to permit the start of bolting. Again, there are 16 bolts, 4 gangs of 4 bolts apiece that will be latched up on commanding. The robotic arm continues to press in ever so slowly to what ultimately will be the ready-to-latch position for Cygnus on the Earth-facing port of the Unity module of the International Space Station. We should be there in just a few minutes.
Station Houston on 2. SSRMS mode to limp is complete. Go for second stage capture.
Copy and work.
And we're standing by for the final point of the mating of Cygnus to the International Space Station. Standing by for second stage capture call.
Houston, first step 7, auto-safing is inhibited. Go for SSRMS brakes on You can ungrapple the element per timely.
Copy that. Good news. Thanks, Jeff. The exercise constraint can now be lifted, and we'll put the safing in work for your next procedure regarding CBCS.
And the good news relayed up to Jeff Williams. 9:52 a.m. Central Time, second stage capture confirmed as the International Space Station passed 252 miles over the Pacific Ocean.
What are the first results? What did doctors say? Is there something interesting you could share with us? There are so many results. They will be in process. They'll be processed for a long time. We'll find out later. What we know now is that our mission was a success, that everybody is happy. I think Sergei would agree, and Scott too. We confirm. How are you feeling? What are your feelings? How do you feel after the spaceflight? As usual, as always, after the spaceflight, a bit heavy, a bit difficult. But it's regular. I'm nearly back to normal. Getting ready.
Well, it's after every flight, it's a real privilege to come back and see the people that made it possible. So that's why we're here to celebrate not our achievement, but the achievement of everyone that worked on it.
Отходим.
Thank you. We're not frozen yet.
Scott Kelly, Expedition 46 International Space Station Commander and member of the one-year crew, along with Mikhail Kornienko. What does it mean to you personally to return to Russia, to be reunited with your one-year crew member, and to receive the honors that have been associated with the completion of your record-breaking mission?
It means a few things. First of all, since I'm leaving NASA here pretty soon, this might be the last time for me to come back to Russia, a country which I love, and the people. I have great friends here and have spent, many years here, almost actually more than a decade and a half. So it's it's sad in that respect. I definitely will try to get back as much as possible, but not nearly as much as I was coming here as a crew member training for all these years. And then it was great to see Misha, who I've spent so much time with in space, and see how he's doing, which is great. And my other crew members on board. I saw Sergei Volkov the first night I was here, and then I also saw Gennady Padalka and Anton Skaplarov. So, just seeing them and other friends has really made it a great trip so far.
Overall, how significant was the one-year mission and in retrospect in bringing us closer overall to our journey to Mars?
Going to Mars is a bunch of baby steps. And, it started off with the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin. And this mission with Misha and I and all the people that put it together, not only my fellow crew member mates on board, but all the people on the ground, is another one of those steps. And sometime in the future, all these small steps will lead to people putting their feet on Mars in the name of science, exploration, and discovery, and I'm proud to be one small part of that.
It's been a bit of a whirlwind in the 3 weeks that have passed since your landing. Have you had time to absorb the magnitude of your accomplishment and the impact it's had worldwide on the public's perception of human spaceflight and of the International Space Station?
I have had very little time to do anything, actually. I got back to Houston and jumped in with both feet into my pool in my backyard, and I guess that's somewhat of a metaphor for jumping right back into life. And it's been very, very busy, a lot of debriefs and medical tests. So on one hand, I haven't had time to really come to grips with the magnitude and the duration that we were gone, and just the incredible effort it takes to fly any flight to the space station, no less a flight of a year. So I hope in the next several weeks or months I will have a little bit more time to kind of decompress and consider what this flight has meant to me, and I am getting a sense for what it meant to other people. I was kind of somewhat wouldn't say shocked. It was somewhat a little overwhelming, I guess, to see how many people were really following along and interested. And I had a sense for that when I was on board, but not nearly the sense I got for the public interest once I had gotten back. So it's great to see that, and I think over time I'll be able to, as I think about it and contemplate the meaning of this mission, I'll really appreciate the public's involvement in this more too.
Scott, you're going to be leaving NASA soon to pursue future opportunities in your life, and you've said all along that you'd never be far from spaceflight. Looking back at your incredible career and most recently the one-year mission, how do you feel that your contribution has opened the doors for others, for the future generations to follow in pursuing human exploration of space?
A couple things in that question. I am going to be leaving the civil service, but I still will be working with NASA as a human research test subject, kind of like what my brother was doing the whole time I was in space. He wasn't a NASA civil servant all this time. He was, just almost like a volunteer. There's still a lot of data to collect on me and him, and we'll both continue to do that. I'll also continue to do the debriefs about my mission. Once I've left the civil service, I'll just do that with a retired astronaut badge. And by me leaving, it allows me the freedom to do a lot of other things. One of those is to continue to be an advocate for human spaceflight, but do it in a way where I have more time on my hands, more freedom, and therefore, in my opinion, the ability to even do a better job than I currently can do now. The other part of your question is about, how can I motivate or be an example for the other astronauts or future astronauts that will come behind me to, you know, for them to achieve their goals. In my life, I have never turned down a hard job. I may have not have liked it. I may have thought of other options for other people to do it, but in the end, I would never say yes or never say no to something I should deep down think I should say yes to that, because it is hard. And, you know, when we do things that are really hard, we can achieve great things. And I think, you know, as that has worked as a great model for me. There were many times when people asked me to do something, as an example, be the backup to a space station crew where there was no flight associated with it. I didn't want to do it. Didn't seem to make sense, but I was asked to, so I put my head down and marched smartly and spent a couple of years training for a space flight that had no flight. But, you know, because I did that, that was recognized as, you know, a major sacrifice. And, you know, later on that led to something else, which led to something else. So it's kind of almost been the model of my career to never say no to things. And I think that's why now, 20 years later, I have had a significant amount of experience and opportunity. You know, I don't consider myself the most capable astronaut, but I've certainly had a lot of opportunities and a lot of great experiences. And I would encourage those that come behind me to just have an open mind to doing things, the hard things, even if they might not think they're the right things at first.
Lastly, over the course of your career, you've worked with many other astronauts in space on your missions, both on the shuttle and on the International Space Station. But Mikhail Kornienko, your one-year crew member, talk about that relationship a bit, and how are you going to move forward in keeping in touch with Mikhail over the incredible bond that you had in your year in space?
My brother from another mother, my space brother. I will be friends with him for the rest of my life. He's a great guy, a really kind of a down-to-earth, kind of earthy, you know, walk with your bare feet through the grass kind of guy. And I enjoyed immensely him being up there. He did a great job. Always had a positive attitude. It was great that we could, you know, share this experience together, the highs and the lows, and, you know, have each other to lean on. And it was great that this was done in an international way. I think it really, you know, drives home the importance of the space station program as a place of international cooperation in something that is incredibly, incredibly difficult, and how this international partnership makes us stronger at doing the hard things.
Mikhail Kornienko, flight engineers of expeditions 43 through 46 on the International Space Station, and of course, a member of the historic one-year mission along with Scott Kelly. Looking back at the one-year mission, how significant was this accomplishment for you personally, and to bring human spaceflight back into the spotlight once again?
Насколько важно сейчас, когда вы оглядываетесь на ваш годовой полет, сам полет оказался для вас лично, и насколько важно было вернуть общественный интерес вообще к исследованиям космоса?
Ну, наверное, не столько важно, насколько я бы не акцентировался на мне как на персоне, насколько важно это для меня, хотя это важно, конечно. Я бы хотел поставить акцент, насколько важно это для будущей пилотируемой космонавтики.
I think it is most important not to draw attention here to my achievement, to my personal achievement here, but it is most important to reiterate the fact how important this flight was for the future joint exploration of space.
Ну, наверное, это не секрет, что наш полет позиционировался как полет на Марс в пределах Солнечной системы. И мы со Скоттом вот сделали первый шаг к этому полету. В плане медико-биологических исследований это очень важно.
I guess it's an open secret that our flight, our one-year mission, was presented as a mini Mars mission as well. And I think myself and Scott managed to imitate this flight and have all the important studies in terms of biomedical support of such missions.
What are some of the most significant results of spending an entire year in space? And are you ready to get back in line for another assignment soon?
Ну, какие для вас наиболее важные события произошли в полете, и готовы ли вы сразу вернуться в строй и быть назначенным на следующие полеты?
Ну, то, что касается полета, наверное, каждое событие важно. Это прибытие кораблей, это грузовики, это пилотируемые миссии, которые к нам приходили, это новые экспедиции, новые люди. Конечно, это EVA, это важно. То есть много событий, которые важны в полете.
During the mission, naturally, there were some highlights. Most likely, most importantly, those were arrival of manned spaceship as well as cargo spaceships, and EVAs, of course, were the highlight of the mission as well.
Ну, то, что касается моего участия в дальнейших экспедициях, я могу сказать, что по сравнению с предыдущим моим состоянием после посадки, я чувствую сейчас, как это ни странно, себя гораздо лучше. Наверное, сказывается опыт, и через некоторое время я буду готов встать вновь в строй.
As to future assignments, ironically, I think I feel better after this one-year mission than after my previous flight, most likely due to the experience and exposure that I've experienced as well. So I think in the short term, I should be ready for another assignment.
How do you feel about being reunited with Scott Kelly after your mission? And how are you going to stay in touch after such an incredible experience together on board the International Space Station?
Насколько важно для вас было снова встретиться со Скоттом? Какие чувства вы испытываете? И как вы будете поддерживать связь в дальнейшем?
Вот это очень важно, наверное, да, что мы работали весь год, душа в душу. И он мне позвонил, ну, дня 3 после посадки, и спросил: Миш, как ты себя чувствуешь? Я ему звонил, но не дозвонился. Мы навстречу другу звонили. Это важно. Мы друзья, мы сотрудничаем. Это пример для сотрудничества для наших стран, вообще, в принципе, для всех, как мы вели работу на борту станции. И мы друзья, и мы останемся друзьями.
Yes, I think this is the most important, actually, about our mission, that we worked the whole mission together with no issues whatsoever. And Scott called me about third day after landing. I tried calling him, so we pretty much were calling each other at the same time. So I think it's a good sign. And we continue. We're friends. We're great colleagues. We'll definitely stay in touch and continue our communication. And I think this is the most important value of our mission as well, and the example that we set as a team of two working together for such a long time.
How do you see the future of human spaceflight, particularly in terms of the joint cooperation that the International Space Station provides that will help lead humankind further down the road toward deep space exploration?
Эксплуатирование Международной космической станции и те возможности, которые она предоставляет, как вы видите дальнейшее ее использование для исследований дальнего космоса?
МКС — это великолепная лаборатория, которая создана усилиями, ну, наверное, всего человечества, да, всех инженеров развитых стран. Это прекрасный пример кооперации. И по решению глав этих стран она будет эксплуатироваться до 2024 года. И это будет прекрасный задел для освоения Солнечной системы.
The International Space Station is a beautiful and excellent laboratory for use of all the nations that put the effort to build it. And these are many, many countries and the brightest engineers that represent these countries all around the world. And we know that the governments of the countries who contributed decided to use the station up till 2024. And I'm sure that it will be used and continuously used for further exploration to go study the solar system.
I went to school at Louisiana Tech University for a Bachelor's of Engineering in Chemical Engineering with a minor in aviation. My grandfather was the youngest pilot to come out of the city of New Orleans during World War II, and as a result, I also had a passion for flying. Louisiana Tech was the only school in Louisiana that did have a flight line, and so I ended up in North Louisiana gaining that education there. After I joined the NASA team, I did go back to school, and I have a master's in environmental engineering from the University of New Orleans. In my spare time, I was flying search and rescue missions for the city of New Orleans Civil Air Patrol. We would fly out of Lakefront Airport, which is an old historic airport in the city of New Orleans, and do search and rescue missions for the city of New Orleans itself. Currently, I'm working construction on the B-2 test stand. Often, I'm the only female in the room. So oftentimes, the designers as well as the technicians are male-dominated, and so being the only female in the room sometimes is a challenge, but I have to understand that I have been educated, I have worked in this industry for over 10 years, and I do have a voice and it does matter. A moment in my NASA history that's really resonates with me is the moment that I got to meet Commander Collins. The day that I interviewed to work for the External Fuel Tank Program, Commander Collins and her STS-114 crew were at Michoud Assembly Facility. And I stood in the audience and I listened to her speak about the mission, and I listened to her speak about what she was going to do with return to flight. And at that moment, I wanted to support her and her vision for us to return to flight. Meeting Commander Collins was a moment that I'll always remember. Knowing that she's the very first female United States commander of a space shuttle was something that was remarkable to me. Also knowing that she was the mother of 2 children made me realize that being a NASA engineer, a female NASA engineer, anything is possible. If I could give advice to any young lady, and quite frankly any child out there that's thinking about doing something in the field of science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, would be to dig deep and try hard. STEM is a challenging program, it's a dynamic field, and it's also so very rewarding, but it's hard. So don't lose sight, try really hard, stay focused, and keep dreaming. What makes me proudest to be a woman at NASA is that I get to help build the Space Launch System to return the United States back to a flying program.